going to take the North and never give it back.
So that's a good pick. You get the corner. I got to go bold, right? I got to go bold for this.
Yeah, she's got some nice long
Welcome back to the Unbearable Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Brad Barron. Make sure to like and subscribe out there on YouTube and rate the show 5 stars everywhere that you get your podcast. What is going on? Emergency podcast. We're all ready to go to bed, right? And then all of a sudden, Bears drop a bomb. We got Keenan freaking Allen as the wide receiver. So today, what we're going to be breaking down, what did the Bears give up for Keenan Allen? Also analyze what Keenan Allen is all about. Does he still have something left in the tank? But then also go through the passing chart, the contract, how it affects the salary cap, everything that you need to know about this deal. We will be breaking it down for you next. Let me know what you think down in the comments. What's up, Joe? Yeah, so right now, Keenan Allen. So Joe saying, does this mean Caleb or Fields? Who knows, right? Like it all depends. I think that the big thing though is it will be 1 year left on. He only has 1 year on the deal. There's only 1 year on his deal, and we'll go through that with the contract. That it's something definitely to keep in mind with him only having 1 year on that deal. I'm also got to pull up a couple other things too, because like I said, going live right after this, I prepared some of these little pieces, but I want to make sure that we get the best coverage out there for sure. So let's get this show on the road, right? So the Bears trade for Keenan Allen, like we talked about. What did the Bears give up? Pick 110. So right now, actually, we can just jump straight over to the actual picks for the Chicago Bears. So right now, the Bears draft picks, we got 4 draft picks. And then there was 4. We got the number 1, we got number 9, we got pick 75, and we got pick 122. So we'll definitely be going through some mock drafts after this and kind of figure out, like not today, but later on, and just kind of break down what the Bears could do with some of these picks. We talk about number 9 being an ideal spot that maybe they can trade back. Now, this is yet again assuming that they go with Caleb Williams. Obviously, if they weren't to go with that, you would recoup all the picks that you would necessarily need. So, knowing how Ryan Poles operates, he could definitely trade back with some of these, but I do like 1 and 9. I still feel like if you trade back from 9, you can get a good defensive lineman for sure. So we got 4 picks, but honestly, you're trading the 110 pick for Keenan Allen, who is a very, very talented receiver. Now, the big knock on him, he's going to be 32 this year, so he's a little bit up there in age. But when you see his production that he has had over at LA, 86 receiver grade last year, 84.8 offensive grade from PFF the year before him, then 77.5, 84.9, 80.8, then 90, 89, 88. So he's been ridiculously productive according to PFF, and we'll break down the stats as well. But when you look about where he lines up, at the beginning of his career, he lined up primarily out wide. But now more so than ever, he's more been a slot receiver. 59% of his snaps this year were at that slot position. Before that, 64%. But he's still 40% wide, 35% wide. So it's a little bit crazy. Also, Michael, what is good? Saying bear down, let's go. Bears, Keenan Allen is the man for the trade. Let me also see. I have the poll out there for everyone right now. 59% say A, 29% say B. Just went down to 28. 6% went C, and 6% went D. So that's how we're feeling right now, us Bears fans. But let's keep going. Let's keep talking a little bit about Keenan Allen as well. So Keenan Allen also more of the advanced metrics, right? When targeted the past 2 years, over a 100 rating when targeted, and you look at his contested catch numbers, usually around that 50%. 50% this year, 41.7% last year, 50% the year before that. He's not necessarily this gigantic contested catch guy, even though he is 6'2", 211. He's still a big body and can play inside of the slot. But when you also look at where he was targeted, when you look at his overall target share, you see this, and it's absolutely nuts. I'll try to describe it to the audio listeners. If you look at just his PFF grades, where exactly he gets targeted, 87.7 when he's running within 10 yards. On the left-hand side, he's 87.7. In the middle, 93.4 grade. On the right-hand side, 91.5 grade. In 10 to 20 range, at the left, 96.6 grade, 94.8 in the middle, and then 82.3 on the right-hand side. Then deep, 95.3 grade on the left, 87.4 in between the numbers, and 91.5 receiving grade in the top right. What this means is that even though that he is a little bit older, I still feel like he's found a home at that slot position. And I think what you'll see with a lot of what the Bears will do, he can play a little bit outside, he can play a little bit inside, and yet again, someone coming from the Chargers, the Bears wide receivers coach knows Keenan Allen well, and I feel like he was someone saying, listen, we need Keenan Allen out there. All records, good teammate, someone that you want around the locker room, and if you go out to Twitter, you already see Jaquan Brisker, Jalen Johnson, DJ Moore already getting hyped up for this. So that, to me, is just something to get excited about for sure. But let me see what y'all are saying out in the chat. We got, I wanted Bears to trade Fields and 9th for Justin Herbert. That would have been crazy. I don't know if they would actually do that, though. I know that there was like some rumors out there, some reports that, well, what if they got the running quarterback out there at LA? Like with Justin Herbert, his contract numbers, it wouldn't have happened because of the amount of dead cap. I believe that was the big reason why he wouldn't necessarily be traded. Ron saying, what's good, Ron? Keenan Allen, Mooney replacement, right? Like that feels good. So then Michael White saying, remember what Ryan Paul said? He built from the drive. He looked for speed. That's why I feel like bad training for Keenan Allen was good, and I feel like we keep it feels off all this. And then last thing, I would have liked Curtis Samuel. Like, yeah, I definitely agree with that. Curtis Samuel would have definitely been nice to have out there. And Jimmy's saying Keenan Allen's going to be 32. What the hell? I think that's the biggest question mark with this, because let's actually go over to his contract and actually just to kind of finish out his stats, just so that we have that, right? So in the past 6 seasons, he's been a 5-time Pro Bowler. So the production is definitely there. And actually, the year before that, he was also a Pro Bowler. So very, very highly productive. We all know this. We all know this from the fantasy football seasons. He's also historically been somewhat injured. Like every now and again, misses a couple games. Played 13 games last season. Had 1,243 receiving yards, 7 touchdowns, 752 receiving yards the year before that in only 10 games and 4 touchdowns. The year before that, 1,138 receiving yards, 6 touchdowns. Year before that, 992 receiving yards in 13 games started with 8 touchdowns. And the year before that, 1,199 receiving yards and 6 touchdowns. So he still has some pretty good production. But like we've said, and like a lot of the people in the comments are talking about, the big question is going to be about the contract. Because when you look at the contract, here is what the contract looks like right now. So this is the final year of his contract, and he's getting paid $23 million. So my question is, what are they thinking with Keenan Allen? What do they expect that they can do with Keenan Allen after this year? This is a 1-year deal. This is a more veteran type of player. Are you able to re-sign him, extend him for a lower deal or anything like that? That's the question that I have. I think that, to me, is the biggest, I think he's a phenomenal player. I think he's going to do some awesome stuff. But I'm kind of curious about what do they expect after this? Like, what's the plan after this year? What do they think that he's going to do ultimately? That to me is the biggest question. Because I also agree with Outspoken Inc. that Mooney replacement times 5. I think that Keenan Allen's going to get open. No matter who's throwing the rock at quarterback, you have 2 bona fide wide receivers out there. And I think that's what's huge. But it is, what about next year? And when you look at the salary cap as well, so I don't have the exact photo out there, but if he's $23 million against the cap, and the Bears currently are sitting at 57, so you subtract that, you got 34. But then also, too, in a lot of these salary cap numbers, I see this going around on Twitter. People are saying that the Bears have more cap than they actually do. Kevin Byard, Gerald Everett, Amen, Matt Pryor, Brett Rippon, and Coleman Shelton. We don't know the exact number. A lot of those sites like SpotRack that I'm looking at right now, the numbers aren't specifically on those pieces. So I'm just going to do some quick math in my head with this. So I'm just going to say, okay, so we got 15. This is great podcasting right here. This is grade A type of stuff. But let's see. So you got about 40. I think that then just rough calculations, I think that they're going to be right at that number type of thing, because you got 23 that comes off of the 57, and then you would have to also subtract an additional 7 for Byard, 6 for then another 6 for Gerald Everett, and I think that might be, and then Coleman Shelton, I think he got a $3 million deal, so fairly cheap, and then Amen was about $2 million. So when you kind of factor that in and drop some of the people off, yeah, I think you're going to be around that $17 million range, just doing very, very quick math on the fly in my head. So 17 million, I expect would be around that estimated cap total. Yet again, we still don't have the official cap numbers for the other players that were signed of what the exact cap number will be with them. So we have some of the other pieces, but yeah, but then Sean saying Poles likes draft capital. What is good? And then also outspoken trade number 1. Jesse saying Allen is 31 and always hurt. Yeah, the injuries are something that's always interesting, because that's when I always kind of get nervous with. Yet again, we're going to talk about fantasy football. Fantasy football, that is kind of my big question. Michael saying, remember where Poles say he built from the draft and he looking for speed. That's why I feel like we're good and keep and feels the trade. Yeah. I think overall, I like bringing in another veteran, especially someone that I think that he could be good out there, and I think that he could just be solid. 215 Philly saying this is doing Justin right. Go Bears. Trade the number 1 pick ASAP. I think no matter what they do at quarterback, I think they're going to be pretty set up, because you're talking about. I mean, let's go look at the depth chart now, shall we? And I think that this is a big addition, because you talk about. We're literally just talking about this. I feel like I just released an episode talking about the new center, Coleman Shelton, that we just added. But when we look out here and you think about what we have, this does change a lot, because now you have Keenan Allen, you got DJ Moore as wide receivers, as like your starters. You got Tyler Scott as a backup. Tyler Scott, because you usually run out with 3 wide receivers total, so you can still draft someone, or you can sign another veteran, someone who's just a base wide receiver, right? And we'll talk about some of the other veterans. Hollywood Brown just getting signed right now. But then the offensive line, we feel good. Bears also signed another offensive lineman as well. Not a great offensive lineman. I think he's going to be more of a competition for a practice squad spot. Ultimately, that you see his grades and everything like that. He has some of the worst pass block efficiency numbers, the guy that they just signed. Blanking on his name, but he's from Seattle. But then if you keep on going, something that I think is very underrated is them having Gerald Everett and also Cole Kmet. Having two good tight ends, and then you have 2 good wide receivers. And let's see, right? Because I think that now, because of this, we were just talking about a tackle going to the Chargers. Now, are they going to go with a wide receiver? Because their 2 top wide receivers are now gone, and Quentin Johnston has not been a good wide receiver when they drafted him out of TCU. So I think that they might now, right when we're getting excited about drafting a wide receiver, now I think that maybe that starts to shift, and now that starts to go the other way because of this trade overall. And now do the Bears trade back and kind of go with that original plan we talked about going with the defensive line and bolstering that, because the defensive tackle market is weak right now. I still feel that they can add some depth at the defensive end spot. So that's where I'm kind of looking. Like, yet again, Byron Murphy out of Texas looks more and more and more like, I seriously think that his stock is rising as a Bears draft pick, because now it looks like you can get him a little bit later. You can trade back a little bit more and get some draft picks and potentially get the best defensive tackle inside of the draft. But let me see what else is going on out there inside of the chat. Let's see. Briar, what is good, my friend? He said, is it going to be Fields or Williams throwing them the ball next year? I still feel like it's going to be Caleb. But I was literally sitting down and I'm like, oh man, like I just can't wait for this to be done. But I still feel like it would be Caleb. I have no reason to think otherwise. I just feel like if that's Poles' guy, right? And I think that it ultimately comes down to this. If Poles looks at Caleb Williams' tape and goes, wow, get him, right? But if he's not wowed and if he doesn't believe that he's the guy, he shouldn't force himself into that. That's my take on it. And I feel like when you watch Caleb Williams' tape, there's a lot of great things on tape for sure. Chad saying this signing means the league will start calling so much talk about Caleb and MHJ. Now we could trade down much farther. Also, Marcus saying, what's up, Marcus? My first time being able to catch one of your live. Yes, thank you so much. And what a time on the first hot topic. What is good, Marcus? Thank you so much. I appreciate it so much. Also, Marcus saying, also worth noting, Washington just traded Sam Howell. Agreed. I think that was the biggest mic drop of because everyone's talking about Justin Fields going to the Seahawks and saying that's the best spot for him. That's going to be the spot. That's going to be the spot. Sam Howell goes to the Seahawks. Now it's all right. Now where? And I still am curious about New England. I still throw that out there as an option. I remember saying this on the show maybe a month ago that New England, they got torched by Justin Fields. And what you typically see is when someone goes after a free agent, they go after someone who absolutely torched them. And Justin Fields torched them. Also, as a defensive coordinator, he might want that. And then they go after Marvin Harrison Jr., go after a new regime, going after the safest pick in the draft. It could be an option, just something to throw out there. So something just to think about. Keegan saying, draft my mom for wide receiver. Hey, if she can run a 4.40, and it depends on what's her RAS score, Keegan. I think that's what Ryan Poles wants to know. He wants to know the RAS score, and then he'll draft her. And then Chad saying, great time to be a Bears fan. It really is, right? I think with all the BS that's going out there with the quarterback discussions and all that, I like to think on this show we can just have some fun. We can just talk some Bears, enjoy that we have the number one pick, and we can either get a potential franchise quarterback or we can trade it for an absolute haul. It is a good time. And I'm excited. This is one of those things where I'm excited as a fan to be able to watch Keenan Allen as a Chicago Bear because I've always been a fan of Keenan Allen. I think that he's a phenomenal wide receiver. And so to be able to watch him in a Bears uniform alongside DJ Moore, it's gonna be fun. What's going on? Chef Poles, Masterclass, let him cook. Leith saying MHJ is still the best player in the draft. I firmly agree with that too. And it's my only question with him was he would always catch the ball like this. He would always put his pinkies together. So those listening to the podcast right now that can't see me, every time he'd catch, he'd put his pinkies together. Then I heard Steve Smith and the GOAT, the actual GOAT, Jerry Rice, talk about this. And he goes, the reason why you do this, the reason why you put your pinkies together is when the ball comes to you, you can see it go into your hands. And when receivers catch with that typical diamond out in front of them, it can go through their hands and go through. And I'm like, huh. So that's why he does it all the time. And so right after that, I'm like, the only critique I could ever put on MHJ, Marvin Harrison Jr., busted by literally the greatest wide receiver of all time. So that's a little tidbit for those that didn't know. That is one of the big things that they talked about. So, but yeah, to me, he is the generational talent. I don't think that Caleb Williams is a generational talent, but I do think he's an elite quarterback prospect for sure. So also, Justin Fields rocks 101. If the Chargers take a wide receiver and there are no more wide receivers when the Bears pick, they should get Brian Thomas Jr. out of LSU. Agreed. And also, if you're I think the big question is, what is the biggest haul at that number 9 pick that you can get? Because you're talking about defensive linemen And if you go down to like the 20s, maybe Jackson Powers Johnson survives all the way down there. Yes, we got Coleman Shelton, but man, Jackson Powers Johnson, the dude is just, he's the perfect combination of absolute man at the offensive line position and absolute talent and footwork at the offensive line position phenomenally well. And Keegan saying she played tight end. Hey, yeah, I still got to know the RAS score. And then Sammy King, first time here. What is good, Sammy, my friend? He said, whomever is the QB, they are taking away excuses from them. Amen. Amen. And you got Jesus doing the crossover. That's double amen there. And the Bears signed amen. Let's go. And then Chilling is saying, so we only have 4 picks now. That is correct. We only got 4 picks right now. Not great. Not great. But still, Bowles is the trade back king. I don't question him when he trades back. And then like what Outspoken Inc. said, obviously, if they trade the number 1 pick, then yeah, we get every pick back. We're getting every single pick for sure. So yeah, so that I think is the biggest thing. So if depending on what they do, I trust Ryan Poles with this, but I think overall this is I really like this. I think that this is a slam dunk. And let's just take a peek at some of the top wide receivers still out there on the free agent market, shall we? Mike Williams still out there, but yet again, still banged up, still injured. I also, just for those that are watching right now, I projected 1 year, $13 million average. And the reason why I did that, there's no numbers for what he would actually potentially get. I think it might actually be a little bit less than that. And because now we have more information about him and his injury, that it seems like he's not going to play the full year. So I would even take that down to maybe even less than 10 million. Because you look at like a DeAndre Hopkins got 2 years, $10 million a year. That's where I think Mike Williams would be cheaper. But still, it's like with Mike Williams, with the injuries, yeah, I'm kind of moving away from there. But someone to look out for, honestly, I think Josh Reynolds, look out for him potentially next. He has the connection to Shane Waldron, and he's more of that outside wide receiver. He also is more of the veteran where he's not amazing, but you already have 2 good wide receivers. And by locking up Josh Reynolds, now you feel good about your top 3 wide receivers. You have Tyler Scott who can progress. And then also you can take a shot and draft a receiver later on in the draft. And then you can potentially cut Velus Jones. So that's what maybe they end up doing is you sign a Josh Reynolds, you get more of that cheaper deal, something to definitely look out for. But then also too, Tyler Boyd, the only thing about Tyler Boyd is he does play more of that slot receiver role. You know, he does play a handful of slot, so it might be more of, that's why I kind of still lean towards Josh Reynolds. Hunter Renfrow, that's like an exclusive slot receiver where maybe the Bears don't ultimately go with that. We would just have to see how this offense kind of wants to leverage certain slot receivers out there. But let's look back at the poll. We got this out there, and it says, how would you grade the trade? 70% saying A, 23% saying B, 5% saying C, and 2% saying D. And if you haven't already, make sure to drop a like down there. It helps out the channel so much. And also, if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss an episode. And if you subscribe, you can comment in the live chat as well. But I think overall, it was good. So I think so far, let's see. We got Justin saying, think about Tyler Boyd. Michael saying, bear down. What if we get T. Higgins? T. Higgins, I think now because we brought on another wide receiver, I think now with the cap, like I mentioned, I think that the cap, doing the quick math in my head, I think it's going to be around 17 million right now. I might tweet out what I believe it is a little bit later on, but we should be there because now when you factor in the actual salary cap overall, and I mean the draft picks and everything like that, I think we're going to be pretty darn close. Now the big question is, what are they going to do with defensive linemen? Because I still feel like we might need a D tackle. Maybe they just get some random defensive tackle that's fairly cheap. But yeah, the number 110 pick is just $991,000. So it really doesn't take that much off of it. So you're really looking at, 12 around 12 million in reserved projected cap pool. So yeah, I think that right now that the Bears might just kind of get a couple cheap defensive linemen. But I think other than that, a couple cheap defensive linemen, if they really want to get like a Josh Reynolds, who might be a little cheaper than some of the other players, that's something to look out for, unless they just go ultimately with a veteran. But yeah, so I think ultimately I'm happy about this. I enjoy this. I enjoy good players. And Keenan Allen is a very good player. He's old. That's the only thing that he's old and has some injuries. That is the only thing that's holding me back. But man, me as a fan right now, I'm excited. And I think we should all be excited for this as well. This is what we love. This is what we love about being a fan. Things like this, examples like this, we have a reason to be excited out there. I know that some are not big fans of this trade just because of the age, just because of some of the injuries. I think it's something to definitely be excited about. We're also getting so close to draft time. It is ticking away. Also, Caleb Williams Pro Day is in 6 days, so hopefully we get more answers on what to be excited about and what is actually going to happen. But you already know we're going to give you the best coverage out there, so make sure to like, make sure to subscribe out there. Thank you all so much for jumping on late. Have a great day, and with that, Unbearable Sports Podcast, we are out.
Yeah, she's got some nice long hair and you know